You know, there are some stories that just stick with you, and this is one of them. It's probably one of the most chilling, most persistent, unsolved murders in American history. It's a story about big dreams, a truly brutal crime, and a mystery that has haunted Hollywood for decades. So today, we're going to dive into the dark legend of the Black Dahlia.
Okay, so let's set the scene. Picture this. It's a cold January morning in Los Angeles, 1947. A mother is out for a walk with her young daughter in a pretty quiet neighborhood when she stumbles on something that would launch a mystery that to this day we still haven't solved.
So how does a single, shocking crime turn into a legend that has absolutely captivated the public for almost 80 years now? Well, let's get into how this myth was made.
The victim was a 22-year-old woman named Elizabeth Short, and she was found in Leimert Park. But what really stunned even the most seasoned detectives was the condition of her body. It had been severed with this almost surgical precision, which immediately made them think the killer had to have some kind of medical or anatomical knowledge.
Almost instantly, the media jumped all over this case, and they gave Elizabeth Short a nickname that would stick forever, the Black Dahlia. I mean, the name was a perfect storm for the press. It was supposedly inspired by her dark clothing and a popular noir film at the time called The Blue Dahlia. And right there, in that moment, a real person's terrible tragedy started turning into a public myth.
But here's the thing. Behind all the shocking headlines and that catchy, dark nickname, there was a real person with her own story. And it's so important to understand who Elizabeth Short actually was, beyond the caricature the media created.
The difference between the myth and reality was, well, it was huge. The media painted her as this mysterious, seductive femme fatale, a symbol of Hollywood's dark side. But that picture just completely obscured the truth. The real Elizabeth Short was a hopeful and often vulnerable young woman who was simply trying to make her dream of becoming an actress come true.
You know, her journey was one a lot of people could probably relate to. She was born in Boston and, like so many others, was just drawn to the glamour and promise of post-war LA. But she wasn't some big star. She was a dreamer, working odd jobs, waitressing, moving around a lot, and often just depending on the kindness of friends to get by in what could be a really unforgiving city.
So with such a high-profile victim and this unbelievably gruesome crime scene, the LAPD launched one of the biggest investigations in its history. But it quickly turned into an investigation just defined by dead ends and so many frustrating leads.
The manhunt kicked off immediately, in January of '47, but it just spiraled. Police questioned hundreds and hundreds of suspects. But the media frenzy also created this storm of false leads, and, believe it or not, dozens of people coming forward with false confessions, just seeking attention. It completely overwhelmed the investigators. And after all that, the case is still officially unsolved today.
With no conviction, theories just started popping up everywhere. I mean, every part of the case fueled a new idea. That surgical precision, it made a lot of people suspect doctors or medical students. The city was super corrupt back then, so others pointed to powerful officials with something to hide. And then you had theories about organized crime, jealous lovers, or even some unknown serial killer. It just became this huge cloud of suspicion that has never, ever cleared.
And this, right here, is the central, just maddening fact of the Black Dahlia case. Despite one of the most massive investigations the city had ever seen, with all this intense public pressure and media scrutiny, no one was ever formally charged, let alone convicted of Elizabeth Short's murder.
So, why this case, right? Out of thousands of unsolved crimes, why does the Black Dahlia story continue to fascinate us so deeply, decade after decade?
Think about that. Nearly 80 years. For that long, this story has been told and retold, not just by detectives, but by amateur sleuths, authors, filmmakers, everyone. That incredible lifespan just speaks to the powerful, dark elements right at its core.
Ultimately, her story has kind of come to represent something bigger than itself. It's a dark reflection on the pursuit of fame, it's a huge cautionary tale about what happens with media sensationalism, and it's a hunting symbol of just how vulnerable dreamers can be in a place like Hollywood.
And that quote really brings the whole narrative back to where it belongs. Because beyond all the grisly details and the endless speculation, we have to remember the real person whose life was cut so tragically short. The enduring legacy of this case should be the human story that's so often lost inside the legend.
So it really leaves us with a final, lingering question to think about. When a person's real-life tragedy is transformed into a myth that entertains and horrifies people for generations, what's the true price of that legend?